May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki, doing our bit to preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So, today we have a guest, Chris Miller. Now, Chris was a student of Shunryu Suzuki, and he's got a book, Searching for the Path Within, From Poetry to Zen in the 60s, and he uses a pen name, Christopher Lennox, Lennox. If you go to cuke.com and, find Chris Miller by writing his name in the site search box. Hey, if you write something in the site search box and it doesn't work, it won't give you any response, then just go to another one of the main pages and do the same thing. Or you can hit it says right above it, it says search. That's also a link, and it'll go to another place. There's sort of a weird kink in it. It's a Google search that's embedded in there. Anyway, and you can also find people there just by hitting the people drop-down menu and going to names, and then searching on that page for the name. Or you can go by alphabetical order. There's over 500 names there. I just go Control F on a PC, Command F on a Mac, and write, like with Chris, I'd write Chris, or I'd write Miller. All right. So there's about, he calls it 18 pages on his experience in Zen Center. It's pretty neat. And he talks about it in the podcast. But we have it immortalized on cuke.com. So, Searching for the Path Within, From Poetry to Zen in the 60s. And Chris taught composition at a small Catholic college, Mary's College in Moraga. He taught composition there for 20 years. So anyway, let's just give him a call. He has some pretty interesting things to say. And we'll do that right after our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause. Meditate or whatever for as long as you like. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give Chris Miller a call.
Hello?
Hey, well, there you are. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I've been reading over stuff I've written about Tassajara just to be ready for this podcast. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I'll let you do the steering.
Well, I always start by asking people how they're doing, then what are you doing? Where are you living? What's happening?
I live in El Cerrito in the East Bay, right next to Berkeley. And I'm writing about a trip to Nepal in 1988 to receive teachings from Tibetan masters. I kept a journal at the time when I went. It was only about a week or so for the trip. And it was a guided tour with, in a sense, a Dharma tour led by Sogyal Rinpoche, and to go to see all these different teachers like Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, Organ Topgal Rinpoche, and it was almost like a different teacher every day, and it was pretty intense. But another thing is that, it's a different culture. I had never been to Asia before. And in Nepal, there was then, and I'm sure it still is, a lot of poverty. So it was, it was an interesting cultural adjustment, too. Because you have the Tibetan exiles living in Nepali country, and there was even some tension between the Tibetans and the Nepalis. But those were sidelights.
You picked up tension between them in a week, or you read about it, or what?
I stayed at a small guest house run by a Tibetan family, and they told me about some of those tensions. Probably happens in a lot of places. Immigrants coming in, and they're a different religion, even though it's historically connected, but the Nepalis are Hindu and the Tibetans are Buddhist, and they have their Tibetan Buddhist shrines there in Nepal, and they're the Hindu temples and shrines also. But it's in the Indian cultural tradition of lots of different types of religious practices going on in the same country. But I'm not sure what was really causing it, except that I learned from the innkeeper that there had been some fights going on just between young Tibetans and young Nepalis, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Not on the governmental level, just the kind of things that happened in the United States as well.
Yeah, it happened all over Asia. Nepalese in Bhutan have been treated very poorly and moved out as much as possible. And, then you have your Muslims in Thailand, especially Myanmar, your Tamil in Sri Lanka. It's just tribalism, I guess.
Right. But that was not the main thing. I had to get used to stepping out the door, walking down the street, and having various people asking me for money every few steps.
Yeah, what did you do about it?
Yeah. I gave money to them, basically, but kind of just put a cap on how much I would spring for. Sometimes I can't even remember what a rupee was worth at that time. But
what year was that?
This is 1988.
Wow. That's the year I went to live in Japan. Huh. Well, when I was
when you
there...
went to Japan?
Huh? Yeah.
That's when you went to Japan that you wrote about in Thank You and OK?
Yes, thank you for the plug. In 2003, I went to India for the first time, and the rupee was worth about 2.5 cents. And I just carried a pocket full of them. Mainly the beggars were around where tourists or foreigners were.
Yeah.
And like in Dharamsala, there were beggars that were in particular places, and I'd go by them. I get every one of them a rupee every day.
Yeah.
Just on the way by once, just one a day. And then when I was back in 2011 in the south of India, there was not near as much of that, but there were these sannyasin, and rupee was not good enough for them. So I started giving food.
Yeah, that's what I did too. In fact, people would ask me for food. Will you buy me, some apples or whatever?
Oh, that's really sincere then, because I'd have sannyasin say. I remember one guy said paise. That's the word he used for money. I can't remember only. He just said money only,
Money only, okay. Yeah. Well, I had some interesting interactions, like when you say sunnyasin, you mean like spiritual?
Yeah, like
guy.
I think that's the right word. Like sadhus,
sadhus, yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Men, when they usually a retirement age, they just take on there's no requirements for it, they just start wearing I think they were wearing like yellow type robes, and they carry like a bowl, and there's sort of a kit that they carry. And in front of the Ramana ashram, there would be about 15 of them, and so I'd make I was staying near the Ramana ashram. I'd get like 10 samosas and just give them to the. I'd try just to walk by 10 of them and get in the gate, and then I didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I ran into some younger guys dressed like yogis, and actually just a couple during the whole week. But one of them told me he was, he's hiking through the Himalayas and meditating and so forth, and would I buy him a shawl? So I did.
Yeah, I met a really nice. In fact, I traveled with him a little. A guy he was younger. He'd taken the spiritual path. He didn't dress like the others. I think he was more independent. But he told me he'd traveled all over India for free on vehicles too, trains and buses. I didn't have to support him. I'm not sure quite. Never know how everybody gets by. In some places there'd be women. Not the sannyasin, there'd be women sitting in front of temples begging. It wasn't. It's sort of like their role, It wasn't out of place or anything bad.
Yeah. Well, this was. I was staying near the stupa at Bodhanath. The big one with the Buddha eyes looking down at you,
mm-hmm.
and there's like a circular, path that goes around it. People are circumambulating. There are prayer wheels built into the side of the stupa so people can go around and spinning the prayer wheels as they go around. And then there's all shops selling all kinds of stuff, but including stuff for tourists mainly, because it's a big tourist attraction. And my hotel was a few blocks down the road from there. I remember it being very dusty, and a lot of the roads were unpaved, and a real jumble of ramshackle housing here and there. I went back in 2014, and Kathmandu had grown incredibly, even more crowded, even more motorcycles buzzing around. That's because they're cheaper. That's more, especially young guys buy motorcycles if they can't afford a car.
Yeah, that's all over Asia. And, so you went from 1988 to 2017. And
2014.
So yeah, there'd be an enormous. It's everywhere. It's just like, it's like unrecognizable. Both places become unrecognizable. That's true in Bali.
Yeah. I mean, unrecognizable is the thing, and because to some extent, new buildings had gone up.
Yeah.
New buildings, new vehicles, but still looking tremendously disorganized by Western standards. Not laid out in any kind of grid, just all wandering alleyways this way and that way, like a big maze.
Yeah.
Well, maybe like a few main roads that you can tell where you're going, but if you get off into these side streets, it's really it's interesting. I mean, you can buy Buddha statues, you can buy beautiful carpets. I'm not talking about ones to cover a whole room, but because I had to carry him back, but I got a real nice long, narrow dragon rug with kind of a writhing dragon going down the rug.
Neat.
About 8 feet long or so. I've still got it. And I also got a Nepali drum. You should see me coming back through customs with all this stuff, and my ears were, this is in San Francisco, returning customs. My ears were all imploded or whatever because my sinuses were stuffed up. I had had a cold, and, it was really, it was kind of painful, the pressure, and it was like being underwater. And I came through customs, and I've got all this stuff, not just the stuff I brought, but all the stuff that I am bringing back. And then the customs looks at my passport, and I had been to Thailand, where I had to stop there to change planes, Thailand and Nepal, and he said he said, where have you been? And I said, what? Because I couldn't hear clearly. And he said, go over to that door over there, and we'll have an agent search your baggage. You know, I guess I fit the profile of an American hippie drug smuggler or something.
You're pretty wholesome looking, but yeah, you know, they have to search a certain number of people.
Yeah.
So this you're working on this now.
Yeah, I kept a journal, and I thought, you know, after finishing my memoir, which is about, you know, how I came to Zen Center in Tassajara, then I thought, this is like 20 years later. You know, I wanted to write something more about Dharma and the path and where I've been and so forth. And I kept a journal. I had kept a journal writing down things every day while I was there. So that was a great help. I just used that as my template or whatever. And the main thing was, you know, how to transform it so it would flow more. I mean, I could have kept it just as a journal, but there were, I don't know, I wanted to give it more of a narrative.
Good.
And comment on how I saw it now, or, you know.
Yeah.
Not just, yeah. So that was interesting, you know.
Well,
just finished it last month, or, you know, I'll probably revise it again, but I finished it for now.
Yeah.
I'm letting it sit for a while, yeah.
What's your plans with it?
Well, I'd like to try to get it published, but I haven't figured out who might be interested in it. It's, you know, typewritten, double-spaced, 46 pages, so it's a little short for a book.
It's not digital?
Oh, no, it's digital, but, you know, printed out 46 pages.
Double-spaced?
Double-spaced, 12-point. Yeah.
So it's really short.
Short for a book, yeah. But
that's good.
What I'm doing, I'm thinking of trying to get that published in a magazine of some sort. In the meantime, adding other pieces, shorter pieces, to make maybe 100 pages. I'm working on those. I'm working on those pages too. Those pieces.
That's great.
So I don't know how long it needs to be for a book, but I'll see if I can make it.
Well, you know, every book has its own length, but 43 pages double spaced. I mean, that sounds like a 30-page book.
46 pages.
Yeah, but you said double spaced.
Oh yeah, right. That's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So you could have a choice of having a book that had various pieces in it, including your journal. Seems to me your journal from Nepal. You could try that. Hey, and I'll be happy to put any of it on Cuke.com that you want to share.
Oh, really? You're not limited to Zen Center Tassajara?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's something. I'll see what I can. How long would you be? How long an excerpt would you be interested in?
Excerpt? I'll do the whole thing. I'll do everything. The internet has no size. Yeah. It has no size, and Cuke.com and ShunyuSuzuki.com have no size. So, whatever you wanted to send, I'd put up. You could write about your childhood. I don't care, because it's all part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I found in my memoir. That turned out to be 300 pages, the whole book, and
wow.
Yeah, because I found out that to explain why I ended up at Tassajara, I had to explain a whole lot about, or tell a story of a lot of my life.
Well, then why are you thinking about just 46 pages?
Oh, that's just this particular segment. This is a separate thing from that.
Oh.
That's the memoir I already did, and I self-published that one. That was the one I was working on when we talked before, exchanged emails, and I sent you some pages.
Oh, I do have it. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. Those pages I sent you are the part focused on Zen, but it was the whole thing was 300 pages, and I had poetry in there and all kinds of things. So that
I have that on Cuke.com. I forgot about it. Excerpts from Searching for the Path Within, from poetry to Zen in
the 60s.
Oh, the 60s. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't realize. 18 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Chris, I just, I'm doing stuff every day, so I can't. And also with my enhanced senior citizen memory, I tend not to remember anything, as a matter of fact.
Oh, me too. Me too. That's why having this journal was such a great help,
Yeah.
For the Kathmandu story.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, yeah, anything you want. Also, you can, this isn't much help, but if you can't find a publisher, you can do what David Schneider did. I have a press, Cuke Press, and I let David publish a Cuke Press book, but it's Cuke Press-DE. DE is Germany. So he did all the work, I told him what to do, and then he figured out other stuff. I think he got an editor, he got art people. I do everything that, I'm not going to get into what I've done. That's not quite true. I've had a lot of help with that, but I've done 6 books on Cuke Press. And if you wanted to do that, you can't find anything else. You can make a print-on-demand book and have it be part of Cuke Press. but still be entirely yours. You know, I wouldn't.
Well, that sounds better than what I did this with the Searching for the Path Within, which was I self-published it on Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, and it's really was under my control in the sense of like how much I wanted to charge for it, how much royalties. They have certain guidelines that you have to stay within.
Yeah.
But you know, I just said independently published on the title page. So it's still up there. Last time I checked.
Yeah, it'll be there. Nobody's going to take it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, but it would be nice to have something that is from a Dharma press, in effect, Coop Press. Yeah.
You know, I really don't do any promotion. As a matter of fact, I just realized I had a Facebook page for it, and I've forgotten all about it. This is neat. You're doing all this. That's great. Well, why don't we go back and see what we can cull from you, what we can pull from you. What's your first memory of any spiritual inkling or wondering what everything's all about or that sort of thing?
That's an interesting question. What pops into my mind is when I was a kid, you know, I was brought up in a Protestant congregational church, Christian church.
Where?
I remember having, you know, I would say my prayers, and I remember having a kind of visualization of Jesus that appeared to me once. I mean, I won't call it a vision. It wasn't that, you know, astounding, but it was just like I could see him there. So I felt like I could talk to him and so forth. So that was, that's what I first remember, in addition to saying my prayers every night.
How old were you?
I don't know. I think I might have been, I know I was under 10. I might have been even 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. I don't know. Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Where were you living?
This was in Natick, Massachusetts. It's kind of an hour west of Boston. Near Framingham. I don't know if you've ever been to that area.
Maybe I passed through it or something. What happened next?
Well, then we moved to Melrose, and then, we moved to Melrose, closer to Boston, and started going to the Unitarian Church, which was different. In the Congregational Church, in Sunday school, we were memorizing the books of the Bible, you know, literally by rote, you know, so we could recite the whole list of the books of the Bible. In the Unitarian Sunday school, we were reading about creation myths from different cultures.
That's great.
And then finger painting.
Oh, that's terrific.
So I was, I suddenly realized that religion could be something interesting, and that there were different kinds of religions, and they weren't all just memorizing the books of the Bible. And that's not fair to Congregationalism to say that that's all it is. But, just as a kid, that was what this particular Sunday school teacher was having us do. That was part of an opening up more to many possibilities. And then we moved to northern New Jersey, within the orbit of the Big Apple there, and I started getting into jazz and beatniks and going into Manhattan now and then in my senior year of high school. And then...
what year were you born?
What year was I born? 1943.
Did you say 40 what?
3. 43.
Oh. Huh. I thought you were younger. You have a very youthful look. All right.
Well, the picture I sent you is from 2005. So
I know
that's a little bit.
I know that's true, but you always. I'm aware of that, but you. In prior years, I don't know what's happened to you now. You might be bent and old and haggard, but in the past,
not quite. But
you had a youthful look when you were younger. And all right, so you're going in. So this is probably about early 60s. Senior year in high school, 61. You're going in.
No, I graduated from high school in 1961.
Yeah.
And then I took a year off from college in 63, 64, and lived in what is now the East Village. It was then just part of the Lower East Side. Mm-hmm. But this is in the memoir I've already published, and lived on near Tompkins Square Park. Do you know where that is?
No.
Yeah. Well,
my wife will know.
There's the what's usually called the Village is the West Village, and this is just about the same level in New York if you're looking up and down, but on the east side where they have avenues A, B, and C, and it's now called Alphabet City because of that, and also the East Village, and so I lived on a 6th floor walkout where each, it's like 4 tiny bedrooms. I was sharing it with another guy, and each bedroom and the kitchen had a mouse hole already gnawed through the molding, And so the first thing I did was rolled up newspapers and stuffed them into the holes in each. The bathtub was on stilts in the kitchen. I don't know if you've ever seen that arrangement. The toilet was in a closet, and it was great. I ate a bowl of oatmeal every morning for breakfast, and then in the evening I'd walk down to there were a lot of Latino immigrants, Puerto Rican a lot, a couple blocks away, and they had great food, inexpensive, and the restaurants, and so I'd eat there and go to. I would go to the Thigh Spot bar. I don't know if you've ever been interested in jazz, but this bar had people like Thelonious Monk, Sonny Rollins, Ornette Coleman.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, I'm interested.
All the latest interesting jazz was being played. Maybe a 20-minute walk for me away.
Oh, that is terrific.
And you could sit at the bar and get one tall glass of beer. I guess it was a pint or something, for like $1.80, and there was no other admission or cover charge. So I could sit through 2 sets, sipping my beer, and that's all it cost. So I was going there quite a bit.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So, was there...
that wasn't exactly officially spiritual, but jazz played a part, I would say, in my sense of living in the present moment. You know, that's a real, jazz musicians really have to cultivate that and be ready to be creative in the moment. Whatever comes up, you work with it. You know? If you make a mistake, if you play the wrong note, you incorporate that into the solo, you know.
Yeah.
You find a way to work with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
So I connect that sort of indirectly with sort of the theme of this thing I'm working on now is the teaching of Suzuki Roshi's on one continuous mistake, or one mistake after the other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened while I was in Nepal. Was I made one mistake after the other, and it was educational, you know. So I got interested in that, sort of applying that, and found that I have other material, especially when traveling. You can find yourself making one mistake after another.
Yeah.
But the tentative title, I have 2 possibilities. I'm not sure which I'm going to use, but one is Losing Your Shoes in Kathmandu, working with mishaps on the spiritual path, or Losing Your Shoes in Kathmandu, Travels and Travails on the Spiritual Path. Which one do you like better?
The second one.
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also the second one is better because it brings in the traveling theme.
Yeah.
And the other pieces that I'm going to put with it, I want to make about traveling too.
Yeah. I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I suggest you consider calling it Losing My Shoes.
That's what it originally was. Someone suggested to make it Losing Your Shoes to be more connecting with the reader, but I could go either way.
It could be either way.
Losing My Shoes is, you like Losing My Shoes?
Yeah, because it's about you. And generally, maybe it's because I am prejudiced against the type of speaking or writing where the second person is used to stand for the first person.
Which is what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was it like when I was in Nepal? Well, you're standing on the street. That's very common. I always sort of jerk around at that and go, no, it's not me, it's you. But it is a style. Yeah. But anyway, so that's my.
But that's not I don't use that style in the rest of the book. But that's what it originally was. I had losing my shoes in Kathmandu.
Well, first thought, best thought.
Yeah, and that refers to just one incident that happened where. Before I went to Kathmandu, I asked a friend, do you have any suggestions of something I should get to prepare myself to go into Nepal? And he said, some good shoes. So I went and bought the best pair of shoes I've ever gotten, like brand new Reebok running shoes.
Oh, yeah.
White Reebok running shoes, and I thought these, if I want to trek up the hill, these are what I need. So I arrived there in Nepal wearing my bright white Reeboks and go to the temple of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's monastery there. And, there's like 100 people going in, and they all leave their shoes outside the door.
Right.
So there's like outside the door, there's a sea of shoes.
Yeah.
And my bright white Reeboks kind of stood out among the sea of shoes. But the first time I went, it was cool. They were still there when I came back out. But the second time I went, when I came back out, my shoes were gone.
Whoa.
And so a friend offered to let me use a pair of his sandals until I could buy some more shoes. But even to get the sandals, I had to walk shoeless across a pasture with bits of broken glass and animal feces and so forth.
Oh, my God.
But, that was no big deal, but it just... Then I went to buy some shoes, and the place where you buy the shoes, I forgot what the street was called, New Road, I think it was called, had just all shoe shops, each shoe shop, a tiny shoe shop, and each shop just had a couple of different shoes in it. It's not like you go in there and they have this type of shoe in all different sizes. It's like they have, for a size 10, they have this one pair of shoes. For a size 13, they have this other type of shoe. So it's like that. And but I managed to, going from shop to shop, I found a pair of gray Italian sneakers that they had a Jaguar on them, but they were very inconspicuous. You wouldn't notice them from a distance. So those are the ones. I think that they cost me $15 or something.
Wow.
And so those are the ones that I got and wore for the rest of the trip. But that's, yeah.
Yeah. When in India, where anything can get stolen anytime, if and my sandals, I have a tendency to get plantar fasciitis. or maybe I've got it and it has a tendency to act up. So I have expensive sandals that have arch supports, and I need them so it doesn't act up. And when I went to a temple, some of them have a cage where you can check things. But if they didn't, which most of them don't, there would be women up front selling things or beggars or whatever, and I would give them money. And I would say, this is to guard my sandals. And I said, and when I come back, I will give you more. And that really worked.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
These women did not exist at the temple where I went. The sea of shoes, and if you had anything that looked really good, it was gone.
Yeah, I was at the Brahmana ashram, and they had a cage, and I would put my sandals in the cage every time I went in, which was twice a day.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out with a young Canadian backpacker who put his very good sandals out. He didn't use the cage. He just left them out there. And when we came back out, they were gone. Inside, that's inside the ashram.
I guess. Yeah, and this was inside the monastery walls.
Yeah.
And then there was a temple building, and these shoes were all outside the temple building, but the gates, of course, to come into the monastery were open, and so anybody could come in.
Well, my sympathies, yeah.
Well, I sort of, in my story, I use this as a sort of, it's a kind of initiation into being ready to let go of whatever it is.
Right. Well, true.
And so then there's a series of things that happen after that. Even another one involving my replacement shoes, which I don't know if I want to tell that whole story now, but it gives a theme to the story.
So
of letting go, and also getting a kind of a crush on this young Japanese woman I met there, but needing to let go of her, and so forth,
Now, you were in Greenwich Village listening to this great jazz. I was very jealous of you. That is fantastic.
Sorry.
I follow jazz here in Bali, somewhat.
Do you know about the San Francisco SF Jazz new building they put up several years ago?
No.
Beautiful venue, and it's what the San Francisco Jazz Festival decided to become a new organization called SF Jazz, which is not only, it's near Symphony Hall. It's not only a club with several different stages, but it's like put Yoshi's out of business.
Is that right? You mean Yoshi's San Francisco Club?
Yeah, Yoshi's Oakland is still there, but it's mainly playing more popular type music.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. Once in a while they'll have jazz, but SF Jazz is now the main jazz venue in San Francisco.
Really?
And it's like SFJ all run together, no periods, just no spaces, just SF Jazz.
Oh, that's neat.
And if you Google that, the great thing is they have various kinds of memberships, and you can get a virtual membership where you can watch their Friday night 7:30 p.m. show, with a different group playing every week, and it's like an hour and a half show, and the membership is like $5 for that show, and for a year of that every Friday night, it's just $50. So, it's great. I mean, especially with COVID and everything, this is a way they kept having shows or playing past ones. But anyway, now it's in person again. But you might just want to check it out because. And they have groups from all over the world. Like they have, they just had this group from Ukraine called Daka Braka, which was kind of pretty wild.
I've heard of them. Yeah,
you've heard them.
I think maybe my wife plays music. Mainly, I hear stuff that she plays. If she plays something. And that sounds awfully familiar. And when you said they're pretty wild, that rang a bell too.
Yeah.
I used to be a member of K-Jazz in San Francisco.
Well, this is the thing now that's sort of the thing to be a member of for jazz in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you heard of Amadou and Miriam, a blind couple from Mali?
Oh.
They're wonderful. I don't know if you call it jazz or African blues or what, but with vocals and guitar, and they usually on a concert they play with a band behind them, and it's like call and response where he sings a line, she sings a line, he sings a line, she sings a line, and meanwhile he's going all over the place with a guitar, but rhythmically, it's like not like the ordinary jazz solo where it's kind of exploring different harmonies and things. This is the solos are very rhythmic, using the guitar, not strumming it, but individual strings in very complex rhythmical patterns, that just go with the African music, like with the drums going, and that's also kind of wild. Anyway, they're on Friday night this week at 7:30, and if you can log on and just pay $5 to watch the one thing, I think.
All right, it's neat.
Yeah.
I actually listen to very little. I don't keep up with anything, really. I just try to keep up with the work I do and walk.
Oh yeah, I'm not keeping up either.
Yeah. I want to go back. You were in Greenwich Village, And from that wonderful experience there, 61, what's between there and how did you get to the Zen Center?
Okay, that was 63, 63, 64. And then I remember because that's when Kennedy was killed. And then I went to Mexico in the summer of 64 and hitchhiked around Mexico. So that was another big adventure. And, you know, I was interested in pre-Columbian ruins, and I had taken an anthropology course in college. So I was fascinated by how this pre-Columbian Aztec culture in particular could have the human sacrifices that they did. And, you know, it just, just started me thinking about cultural relativism, but also, I don't think it made it right that it was culturally a different culture and a different time, but there was human sacrifice was going on in Europe as well. So it's and there was kind of I got interested in the anthropology of religion, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, neat.
And I had dropped in at some yoga places and
where?
In Boston. I was definitely interested, but it just seemed a little too for me, too much about going into a trance or something, but this was also a time when myself and everybody I knew was starting to smoke pot and try some other drugs. And I was listening to Alan Watts on the radio. He had I don't know what it was, but he whether it was a series or just once. I think it was NPR, and it might have been in New York that I heard him also. So that's what got me interested in Zen. And I got his book, The Way of Zen, and it seemed to me to fit with what I was experiencing. And Leary was, Alpert and Leary were starting to, become known and so forth. So the whole thing of altering one's consciousness to be in a better place was very much in the air at that time. And so when I came to California, it wasn't because of Zen Center. I'd never heard of it. It was because of Kerouac and Ginsberg, and I read On the Road, and I was and I started hitchhiking, and then I read the Dharma Bums, and there you have Kerouac, Ginsberg, and Gary Snyder, and they're in Berkeley, and around San Francisco. So I decided to go to San Francisco State and get an MA in English. They had an MA where you could emphasize creative writing at that time. It was.
Had you gone to any college?
Yeah. I had finished college at that point.
Where'd you go?
I went to Harvard.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. I usually don't mention that right off because people have so many preconceptions about it.
Well, there were so many people at Zen Center from Harvard. I mean, guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you get favorable treatment from Richard Baker because of that?
He didn't know that.
Oh my God, you blew it.
Because he was an earlier generation. But I met John Steiner, who was in my class. But I didn't know him at Harvard, but I met him at Zen Center.
Wow.
But that's when Alpert and Leary were getting fired for giving acid to undergraduates. And I was one of the undergraduates that went to a talk they gave hoping to get some,
Uh-huh.
But by that time, they had stopped sharing it with undergraduates because they got fired a few months later.
Yeah.
They were already in trouble with the university.
Well, did you get some somewhere else?
No, I didn't get acid till I got out to San Francisco.
Oh.
And in Cambridge, I just smoked pot and tried morning glory seeds, which turned out to be.
Yeah. How was that?
It was fine until it made me sick.
Yeah.
And then it was really ugly.
Oh.
Because it affected me not only the nausea, but that affected my whole mental state.
Yeah.
But there was a lesson in it. Just the whole world had turned, dead, and I felt sick, and I remembered what I had read in the some psychedelic handbook written by Leary and somebody else.
Are you talking about the psychedelic experience?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
that's Leary, Alpert, and Metzner.
Yeah, that's the one. And so that's another thing about I was realizing that Buddhism was something interesting because they were using lines from the Tibetan Book of the Dead in that. And I remember something about, just basically let go and go with the flow and that kind of thing. And so I did that, and the result was that I threw up, and then I felt great and had a good trip, So, but I never did it again.
Oh.
And that's even with boiling the seeds ahead of the time, which you were supposed to do. So, anyway, that I didn't want to mess with any more of these things that were likely to make you sick. So, in San Francisco, you had a bigger choice of what you wanted to take. But anyway, I didn't get that deeply into the drug scene because I arrived in San Francisco in the fall of '66, and I wound up at Zen Center in February of '67. So I was only there about 4 months, in which I was interested in drugs, and after that I was into meditation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, though, I saw what drugs were doing to some other people.
Yeah, but I mean, when you say drugs, different drugs had different effects. I mean, the one that LSD didn't really cause much harm as far as I can see it. I think it helped people. But, some people were smoking pot all the time, and that was a bit of a trip, but mostly that was right. But speed was the one that was really destructive.
And I know, and I lived in a house where the guy who he wasn't my landlord, but he was the guy who was subletting me a room. He had a 9-to-5 job, but he shot meth every weekend.
Ooh, bad.
So not every weekend, but he sort of had it under control to some extent. But I met speed freaks, or at least one, and saw what he was like. Just twitching all over. Yeah, so people would come hang out there. They were all friendly, good people. I liked them, but it's like they were each into a different. They were each into a different drug. This guy's friend, and I sort of saw. Okay, this one does that. This one does that, and I try a little bit of this or that, but I realized that it was. For one thing, I was, going to classes and trying to get my MA, so I couldn't really, I couldn't get too far into it, and then I just moved to live near Zen Center as soon as I discovered Zen Center.
Did you have any classes with Steve Gaskin?
I went to. He was not teaching at San Francisco State at that time, but he was giving a Monday night class. He called it. It was, informal. It wasn't a credit class, and I went to that once. But that was after I was already. Quite firmly into Zen and going to Suzuki Roshi's talks.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Gaskin showed up at a talk Roshi was giving, and somebody said, "Hey, that's Steve Gaskin," and I'd heard about him, so I went to one of his Monday night classes. It was good. I thought I had respect for him, and he also respected Suzuki Roshi, I know.
Oh, yeah.
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 But I wasn't tempted to follow his group or his taking acid or whatever.
Yeah.
I took acid a few times, enough to realize that, you could have a good experience or a bad experience. But I saw some people who, shall we say, became mentally destabilized by it. I mean, I'm sure they already had that tendency, but it didn't feel like something I wanted to play around with beyond a certain point.
Yeah. So there you are. And your story, it's very similar to mine. I came about half a year earlier and had the same experience sometime in the hate and acid and grass and stuff, and then getting into going to Zen Center and sitting in the acid and grass falling away, and then did you get down to Tassajara pretty soon?
Actually, that first, I arrived in the, February, I think, 67, and there was all the thing about Tassajara, and they were buying it, and
it was already bought. Well,
it was already bought, but
that's true. We were still buying it. We'd only February we'd only made the down payment of $20,000.
Right. I remember the fundraising was still going on.
Oh yeah, heavy.
Yeah, and the excitement about it was going on, and so I signed up for the first month of that summer, the first training period.
Right.
And I wish I had signed up for both months, but I had in the meantime gone down to Esalen and managed to line up an unpaid assistant position there for room and board in the second half of the summer, helping Fritz Perls with his, he wanted to make a film of his work, and at that point I was into filmmaking. So, I had gone down there and had a really good session with him personally, where they just bunch of people in the audience, and he says, anybody want to come up here? So I volunteered along with several other people, and I was impressed by his work, and it's helpful to me. So I went to him later and said, I'm thinking of coming down to this Zen training session, but I'm wondering if after that, if you need anybody, maybe he had mentioned his film, if you need anybody to help edit your film. And I was taking a filmmaking course at the time, so he agreed, and so I left Tassajara after the first month, and it was very powerful for me, and went to Esalen, and it was a real letdown. It was just like people at Esalen going through all the confusions of samsara, and it turned out Fritz Perls had another assistant who was the one doing the video recording, and he wasn't using film; he was using videotape. And he said, and he immediately, this other guy looked at me as some kind of competitor, instead of someone to work with, and claimed that since all my experience was in editing film, that I wasn't qualified to work with videotape. And he just pretty much ignored me. So there I was hanging out at Esalen getting room and board, but with really nothing to do except feel the bad vibes from this guy.
Oh, that's too bad.
So So I told Fritz, I'm sorry, but I'm out of here. He wasn't there when I went to his room to explain to him, so I just left him a note, and I drove down the coast to see the rest of California, and went into Mexico a little bit. But it was I didn't really follow up with the kind of intense practice that I should have to keep it going, to keep that Tassajara experience alive. So I feel like I went back to Zen Center, and then I knew I had to go back to Tassajara. So in 1970 I did until 72. Yeah.
When you say until 72, were you there in 72?
Until the spring. I don't know if I left before the spring training period or after it, but I left.
Well, the spring training period in 72, wasn't that done by Katagiri? He did the fall.
Yeah, maybe I left before that. But I remember it being I don't remember what the dates were of when the training periods went.
Oh, well, it started about January 15th and end about April 15th.
Oh yeah, I went to that because when I left it was spring. I mean, I wasn't. The only reason I wasn't sure was I just remember Katagiri had been there for some other training periods or some other of the time. I remember him being around a lot.
Yeah, he was there in 70 when you were there.
Yeah.
I think he wasn't there he translated for Tatsugami in 70, a very painful experience for him.
Right, and I remember when I came, Tatsugami, I arrived in time for the last half of the Sando Kai teachings, and then I think it was Tatsugami after that, wasn't it, in the fall of 70?
Yeah, but Tatsugami did the spring practice period of 70, and he did the fall of 70. And Suzuki gave the Sandokai lectures in the summer of 70.
The summer, yeah. I got there in August while he was giving the Sandokai lectures. I got the last part of that, and then stayed for Tatsugami in the fall of 70, and then stayed, or going back for Christmas and everything, but stayed through 71, and then left in the spring. It must have been in April after that training period in the spring of 72.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's go back to when you arrived at Zen Center in February of 1967. What was your experience of arriving in Zen Center?
Well, right from the start, I felt like, hey, the first time I sat, actually, Suzuki Roshi wasn't there, but Dick Baker was there, and he came over to me. He came over and said hello. He noticed me as a new student, and he said something like, "How was that for you?" And I said, I could keep doing this for the rest of my life, because that's how I felt. I felt, and that doesn't mean that I had some big experience. It's just that after sitting with all these onrushing thoughts going by the end of the session, my mind was clearer, and I thought, well, this works. I can do this. I don't have to take drugs, and this is before.
Yeah. So, well, what happened? At some point, I'm sure you ran into Suzuki Roshi.
Oh yeah, right, right. Well, he was there in the mornings for morning zazen. I was living over on Church Street, on the other side of Market, and I had a bicycle, and I was getting up at something like 4 a.m. and bicycling over to Zen Center to sit in the morning. This is before I moved over there.
Oh yeah, it was 2.5 years before.
2.5 years before
moving to Page Street.
Oh, before
more than 2.5, 2 3/4 years from February.
Yeah, but it was before I moved to Bush Street.
I see.
I had been living on Church Street, just looking out over what's the name of that park? Anyway, the one with the mission.
Dolores?
Dolores Park, yeah. Looking on Church Street, looking over Dolores Park.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice ride over to the... Oh, wow,
that's nice. So,
yeah,
and I'd ride, over the hills to get to Zen Center. And so I lived in a couple different, shared housing Zen households on Bush Street. And for a while over on over more towards Haight-Ashbury for a while, and then when Zen Center moved to Page Street, I lived right on the corner of Page and Laguna. Those Victorians there.
Yeah.
The other corner from where the little shop was. I forgot the number, but it was the second one downhill from the one that was right on the corner. So I could see Zen Center from my front doorstep.
Was that where William Shaw was living?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to when you first arrived. What's your first memory of? I mean, you must have met Suzuki Roshi at some point, or heard him speak or something.
Oh well, yeah, sure. My first impressions were his talks that he would give. This is in that small little zendo upstairs. In the eaves up there. Yeah. And I remember he gave a talk, and I remember I asked him the question, does Buddhism say you should enjoy life? Because I guess that was one of my concerns, because everything looked so regimented to me at first, So I asked, does Buddhism say you should enjoy life? And he said, he looked right at me and he said, the Buddha said, you should enjoy life the way a bee takes nectar from a flower, gently, without harming anything.
Ooh, boy, that's good.
And I was just, that was so perfect. It answered my question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember filing out of the Zendo through Roshi's office. We would each bow to him, and he would bow to us,
Right.
Exchange bow as we'd go out through his office at the end of the session.
Yeah.
And I noticed that he would not meet my gaze when we did that. I figured out that for him to meet your gaze at that point meant something, So there were just little things like that, and other incidents. I remember being late and sitting on the row of zafus up in the outside the door.
Gaitan, yeah.
Up in the eaves, in the big auditorium there.
In the balcony of the auditorium.
The balcony.
Yeah.
In the balcony, yeah. And I'm sitting there, and Roshi came by, behind us, like he did early in the sitting. He just walks, kind of checking everybody walking behind, and I suddenly heard behind me, "Kasho!" And then he said it several. Yeah, he said, not yelling, but loud and intense. It's sort of like a loud whisper, and I peeked around just to make sure he wasn't talking to me, because I was gashoing. And I saw that there was this new student who didn't know you were supposed to gasho or even what a gasho was.
That's right.
Yeah, and I saw Suzuki Roshi had knelt down beside him, realizing the situation, and he said, "I'm sorry."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so there were just little things like that I really, felt he had compassion as well as wisdom.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Because I remember other people would experience that. They'd come to Zen Center. He'd be doing the morning jundo, the morning walk around to greet everybody. And some people
right.
wouldn't know that you're supposed to put your hands together in gasho as he passes. And he'd say gasho, and they wouldn't know what it meant.
Right, exactly, yeah. That's what this was.
But that's nice. There he said, "I'm sorry." That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Then another thing that happened when I was late and sitting up there in the balcony was just suddenly, right in the middle of the zazen, was this huge blast of organ sound. You know, like there's no way I can. You know how loud an organ can get.
Yeah.
And it was like right coming from pipes right right behind me, you know, because that's where the pipes are for that organ, which the organ is downstairs, but the pipes are right up there. And
where were the pipes?
So up in the balcony.
I forgot.
The organ pipes were up there. Yeah, or close to, somewhere up there, because it was loud, and it only happened that once because the organist apparently decided to practice at that time and didn't realize we were meditating up there. It might have been an afternoon zazen. I'm not sure.
You mean a 5:30?
Yeah,
it would have been a 5:30 zazen.
More likely then, and the organist had just started off with this blast, but it was it was like wake up, you know.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Well, I don't know.
Do you remember anything? Go on.
Well, what would you like to hear?
Hear about what was your experience at Tassajara? What was Tassajara like for you? Did you remember any particular experience or anything that sticks out?
Well, actually, quite a bit. You know, it's, anyone wanting more detail can check out the 18 pages on coop.com. But Tassajara was hard for me because I was resistant to too much regimentation or organization. And so it was difficult. That first month, you know, on the one hand, it was great meditating so much, and here he was giving lectures then. I'm not sure. I remember after about halfway through, after about 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of the Tassajara schedule, I went to Dick Baker. You know, I met him before, and he seemed to be, you know, he was a head student. And I said to the effect, look, this is really great, but I'm going bananas by this skin. I just need a break. And I'd like to just like drive over to Monterey for a couple of days, and then I'll come back.
Uh-huh.
That was the fantasy that had come up in my mind. And he said, "Well, Zen is not for everyone." And I said, "Oh, I'll stick." So I did, and that was just a anesophobia.
That was just you're breaking up on that end a little bit. That happens sometimes.
Oh.
It'll pass. You said so. Dick came up to you. No, you went up to him and said, "This is a bit much. I'd like a couple of days off. Go out to Monterey." And he said, "Zen's not for everyone," I guess. And then what?
And then I decided to stay.
Yeah.
It was like, it was like, okay, sort of put it down, well, some people, the way I took it was, well, some people just aren't up to, do it. And so I took it, whoa, I took it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And so I kept doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember that being allowed. However, people would like people learned that you wouldn't be questioned if you said you had to go to the doctor. And so like my first wife, Diane Goldschlag, back then Diane now.
I remember her.
Yeah. She and Margaret had to go to the doctor.
I remember her too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just went out and played all day in Monterey and came back late. Well, any other memories of that first practice period? That's a long time ago, I know.
Well, I remember when I got there, I had hair down to my shoulders, and I remember standing, talking with some other guys who also had long hair, and we were talking about that Suzuki Roshi had said we needed to cut our hair at least 2 fingers, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Not lengthwise, but widthwise, at least that short.
Wait a minute.
And
not lengthwise.
Not the length of a finger.
Oh, yeah.
But the width
I was thinking of the hair. So, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hair,
widthwise, about an inch.
The width,
right.
Yeah, the width is 2 fingers. Yeah. So we were standing around and talking about this, because we were going to all have to cut our hair off. And we just sort of said, well, what the hell, let's just shave our heads. Let's go for it,
Yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite a few people did, actually.
Yeah, it became the style,
Yeah.
And most of us did. When Tatsugami came in, he said, why do all the men have shaved heads? Oh, that's, because he said, no, only monks shave their heads. So
okay, yeah, right.
So then it changed. Yeah. And Hmm. And you remember Cobuncino was there?
Oh yeah, he was wonderful. I really liked him, and that was so sad to hear that he had died. But
tragic,
tragic, trying to save his daughter when he didn't know how to swim himself. You know, I mean, what a bodhisattva.
Yeah, yeah. And Maizumi was helping to lead that practice period, or he was a priest there for the first. That summer was the only time we had a practice period in the summer, and it was just getting going. And they couldn't wait and didn't know better, and so it was divided into 2 1-month sessions. And like you said, and the first one, Maizumi was there. Do you remember him?
No, I don't. Why do I not remember him? Maybe.
Well, he was there that first month, but he wasn't the teacher.
Oh, he wasn't the teacher. That's probably why I. Yeah.
I think he gave a talk or two, and he was sitting up on the altar. He's one of the transmitted monks up there. Him and Kobun, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Katakuri was in the city. Suzuki was there. Yeah.
Well, I remember Kobun very well, and because I also remember him in the city. I don't know if it was when that was, but he was. He had this openness and graciousness and that you could just connect with him somehow emotionally.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
it's
but
true.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I don't remember Maizumi, but it might have been just that I could only take in so many monks at once. I don't know.
Right. If Kobun was in the city, he was just visiting. I don't ever remember him living in the city. He was either at Tassajara and then later at Los Altos.
Yeah, I just remember talking to him on the street. This street. So it was probably when he came to visit. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember 2 things right now with him in this city. I ran into him. Bob Halpin and I had gone to talk to Suzuki, who'd been ill. And, he'd had one of these flus and nobody'd seen him. And so we barged in and asked him, how's he doing? And I think he'd been ill. Anyway, we went over there to see him. So, he welcomed us and made us tea and said he had some exciting news. And we said, what? He said, I'm going to Japan and I'm going to give Richard Baker transmission, and then you'll have an American teacher. And Bob said, Suzuki Rose, if you give Dick transmission, everybody's going to think you've gone crazy. And he said, no.
That sounds like Bob Halpern.
Right. He said, no.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what? Does that mean like he's completely enlightened? He said, no, it means he has a good understanding and a full commitment. And so I remember when we left, I was down on the street, maybe not them, but Kobun was in town and ran into him. And of course, I went up to him, hey, Kobun, guess what? Suzuki Roshi's going to give Dick Baker transmission. And Kobun reacted like a character in a horror movie, reeling back, going, no, maybe Dick, maybe Philip. I told that in
Yeah.
Crooked Cucumber, and Dick said, well, that sort of hurts my feelings. And I also had in there, I told Diane, and she says, what? He's the most egotistical, uptight, least enlightened person in Zen Center. And he said, that sort of hurts my feelings saying that. I said, well, it just shows you were, you had your critics well before you were his Dharma heir and became Baker Roshi, and that he accepted you, more than accepted him.
Yeah, and he also to use a kinder word, had a lot of self-confidence. That he could just walk in to, and I'm just fantasizing this, walk into a room full of rich people and convince them to give money, maybe not a room full, but one at a time, I mean, he was, regardless of who was more enlightened or less enlightened, he had the ability to really get it going,
get it going. More than raise money.
And get it growing. Get it going, get it growing. And maybe some of that was a little bit grandiose. Maybe it was too grandiose, because could it really maintain that growth rate? I understand the criticisms of him, and I didn't take him as my personal teacher after Suzuki Roshi passed away, but I always felt, I would say, grateful to him that he, when I was a new student, he was open to me. He wasn't like stuck up in the kind of way that you're a new person, you don't exist.
Right.
He was very much, wanted to engage.
That's nice.
With me, So I think, at least in the beginning, I think he was good for the Zen Center, but then maybe it reached a point where he was, I don't want to make any criticism directly, but that the way it evolved, he eventually had to step down.
He didn't have to. He just wouldn't accept the conditions that had moved.
Okay.
It had moved to a place that he couldn't accept.
And I wasn't there at all during that. So I was only there. I left in 1973 and went to Boulder.
Oh, really? Really? Yeah. I want to hear about that. I want to say one more thing about Dick, though, is that there was a line people would say back then about him, and they would say later, like I would hear, oh, he's like a good businessman. Or they'd say, well, he was a good manager, but he wasn't like a teacher. He was the person who could make, like you said, and this is true. And I'd say, no, he's not a businessman. He's not a good businessman. He's not a good manager. He's he's like a visionary, creative artist to get things going. you know,
Yeah,
and
I
he
agree
could
with
see
that. Yeah,
things, and
yeah,
he saw that Zen Center needed a certain form to for Suzuki Roshi's teaching to be able to continue, and he created it. You know, it only worked because of all of us were there. And
well,
but
the only, yeah,
yeah,
the only way you might say he was a good businessman is as an entrepreneur. You know, having the vision and getting a startup going and getting the investors to, you know,
yeah,
fund
yeah,
it, but not the kind of businessman who later runs it. But
right,
in the initial
right.
in the initial stages, the entrepreneur who starts it up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
in '73, you headed out to Boulder.
Right.
How did that come about?
Well, that when Trungpa Rinpoche came to San Francisco in '70, I was. That was just before I. Well, that was June, and then I went to Tassajara in, I think, early August or something. Went back to Tassajara. So I went to hear him speak at some auditorium or church. I don't know where it was. I think it was in Berkeley. And I just was blown away by, just his spiritual presence. Not only his sense of humor and all those things, but just it was like getting high on acid just to be around him or something like that. That's what it felt like to me. I shouldn't say acid because it was different. It wasn't a druggy thing. It was just more. The presence of nowness was so intense that he radiated, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is '72, and Roshi had recently passed away, and even though, I felt in one way I was okay with Dick Baker as the person who welcomed me into Zen Center, but I didn't want him to be my teacher, So there was Trungpa. This is before Suzuki Roshi died that I first met Trungpa. But okay, so then after Roshi died, then Trungpa was the one that I felt most drawn to in terms of, transmitting something to me spiritually. And so then after I went to Tassajara, so my first reaction was, I need to go to Tassajara again to strengthen my practice. So I already had planned to do that. And then I met Trungpa, and so I just thought, well, maybe eventually I'll go to Boulder. And so I went to Tassajara for about a year and 2/3, and then left Tassajara and went to Boulder.
Mm.
After having some wonderful experiences with Tatsugami Roshi in between.
Yeah. You like Tatsugami?
To me, he was, as I say in my memoir, he was like Sitting Bull or something, and had a face like crushed rock. In fact, he was this physical, strong presence that was sort of, and very, authoritative. And he was the perfect target for my anti-authority projections.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of liked him because I knew I was not going to be a student, but I sort of liked, here I am actually dealing with, whereas Suzuki Roshi, I couldn't really project my anti-authority stuff with him because he was too compassionate. I loved him too much. I couldn't. But with Tatsugami, I could really, feel like I was dancing with it,
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to know anything that happened, but
yeah, sure.
Okay, this is not in my memoir.
Oh, good.
But it's confidential to you and whoever is listening to this podcast.
Right, great.
Well, Ruvain and I were the Doans playing the Makugyo drum and the bells and so forth for the chants. And I'm not sure. This was it was one of those training periods where Tatsugami was there. I'm not sure which one. But Tatsugami Roshi kept looking at us and indicating that we should speed up the Makugyo, like during the Heart Sutra, go faster, like he'd gesture or whatever for us to go faster. And we sort of didn't like that because we were used to doing it at a certain rate that we've been doing for years, with Suzuki Roshi as our guide. And he wanted to, and it sort of symbolized, he's telling us to go faster, okay? So we decided, okay, we'll do it faster, and we'll do it really faster. And so, we're going along, hitting the Makugyo, and then we start speeding up really fast so that people were not able to keep up with the chanting. And Tatsugami turned and he gave us this dirty look. And so that was our it was our anti-authoritarian rebellion.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Yeah.
Now, who was the Kokyo, the one that leads the chanting?
I can't remember.
Okay, because Tatsugami taught that the Kokyo sets the pace, and that the Makugyo and the bells follow the Kokyo. So you
well,
really,
whatever.
you
I
really
don't know.
were.
Maybe I don't know who. My memory now is just Ruvain and I. Maybe he was the Kokyo. I don't know.
Oh.
Because I think I was doing the Makugyo.
Oh, you were on the Mokugyo.
So I
would
so,
say
and
Ruvain was probably the Kokyo leading
probably,
the chanting,
we
and
were,
that you two conspired to make it go so fast that it would be like a train wreck.
Yes,
well, good for you.
Yes, that's it was. We did conspire, and so he must have been the Kokyo, because all I remember is banging the Mokugyo faster and faster.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, in the one way, it's kind of a teenage thing to do, but you know, get back at the teacher or something, you know, which is probably why I didn't put it in print.
Oh,
but you know, on the other hand,
I like it.
It did symbolize. it did symbolize how we felt about the more authoritarian presence of Tatagami Roshi.
Yeah. Now, your memoir, you said it's 46 pages, sort of cover the Zen stuff.
No. The 46 pages is the Kathmandu trip.
Oh, all right. Pardon. Now, then there's 18 pages on Cuke.com. Is that the Zen part?
That's the Zen part. It's not everything of the Zen part, but it's what I wanted to, at that point, you know, what I wanted to put out there.
Well, do you want to, we could do another podcast and you could read it.
Oh, okay. 18 pages? Yeah, I could probably read that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's nothing. We're over 2 hours now. You're going to read 18 pages.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we probably reached the limit for tonight. Yeah. Okay. Let's put it this way. I'll read what I would at this point like to read.
Yeah, absolutely. Your boss.
Might include some things, but not some things that aren't there. I don't know. I'd like to
put it
have
together.
That flexibility.
Put it together, and let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see. What is today? Friday. Let's do it next week while we're fresh.
Yeah, I think that's a little too soon for me. Let me look at my calendar.
All right, you just tell me.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm not going away. Well, I don't know if I'm not going away. Like Dogen says, there's no power on heaven or earth that can assure you will be alive in the next minute, or something like that.
I could do Wednesday.
Wednesday that's Thursday here. I think that's all right. Wednesday here, there's no internet because it's the day the island goes dark. That happens once a year. I wanted to hear more about your experience with Trungpa, how long that lasted, and what you've been doing with your life. What was your profession, you know?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you I taught freshman composition for 20 years.
Where?
At St. Mary's College, a small college, Catholic school in Moraga on the other side of the Berkeley Hills.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I started out part-time and eventually got full-time, but non-tenure. I didn't get tenure track. Because I only had an MA, and you know, those PhDs are the ones who run the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've suffered greatly because I never even made it partly out of being a freshman.
Well, that kind of hierarchy it goes up the whole ladder in our society.
Yeah. And how was it with Trungpa and that group? How long were you there?
I was there from 73 to 79. That's 6 years, and I went to one of their, they call it seminary.
Right. How was that?
Like a training period. That was good, but I had some difficulties which I can go into later.
All right, let's talk about it. Next week.
Not with Trungpa really, but with the just the way the organization was.
Yeah. Well. Organizations tend to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, I just had one question. You mentioned Bob Halpern. I had heard that he became a student of Trungpa Rinpoche, but when I went out there, I never saw him. And so I wondered what happened with him.
He was very close with Trungpa. He was like Trungpa's, one of the closest people to him. But
what period? What time?
Oh, he went out before you. He went out in 70 or 71. He got on the Vajragard, and he was doing a lot of business. But people doing business there had high status in the group. There was a lot of, if you were making a lot of money, you had higher status.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you agree? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe he was part of the inner circle, which I never managed to get into while I was there. I lived in Marpa House, which was this, it used to be a fraternity house.
Allen Ginsberg lived there at one point, didn't he?
Well, I remember, I don't know if he didn't live there while I was there, but he gave a reading, and Naropa had, I took a course with William Burroughs,
That's neat.
Ginsberg I already knew from I'd run into before at poetry readings on the East Coast. So anyway, I was happy to be around those guys, but we were sort of more or less, the people in Marpa House was more or less ignored by the inner circle around Trungpa Rinpoche. But I'm surprised that I remember asking about Bob Halpern, but people said, well, he's off somewhere doing business. So that,
he did do a lot of that, but like I can remember going out and staying with him and him not having any time for me because he had to do this and that for Rinpoche and and
when did you go out there?
He ended up going to Japan. One thing he was doing for the group, he was going to Nepal, India, to get stuff, to do stuff for Trungpa. He went to Japan and got Oriokis. I think he might have been involved with getting Zafus or Kapok or.
Yeah, that explains it. He was doing stuff like that. Yeah.
Anyway, and he he was in Japan a number of years, like 7 years or something, and then or 8 years, and then I saw him. He was in Japan when I was. I saw him some, but we had very different lives, and he was in Kyoto, and I was down in Okayama, and he was very busy running a language school, and I had other friends in Kyoto when I went there.
Wow.
But he ended up, he's in Nova Scotia. He's been there for many years.
Halifax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Halifax. Yeah.
Yeah, they moved. That was later that they moved to Halifax.
Yeah.
So did you go to Boulder to visit him during what years?
Oh, I can't remember. I was there. I'd go to Texas to see my family, see my mother. Like maybe for holidays. I'd drive out there and I'd stop. Sometimes I'd be in Boulder. I can remember being there for a couple of weeks at a time. Maybe that was just once, but I'd be there for a while, and I can remember seeing Trungpa and seeing Ursula Tensing and Alan Marlowe threw a party for me, and Alan Marlowe was the most responsive people to me. The people were so busy. Were Alan Marlowe and Jack Elias.
Jack Elias, yeah. Well, what year was that?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I would say, all
70s?
right. I would say I started. I don't think I went to Boulder before 1976 or 7. Then into, so the late 70s, the early 80s.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry I missed you. I might have been on a retreat or something when you were there.
Yeah. Well, I remember, Bob, I'd see Bob, I'd even stay with Bob and Abby, but he'd be busy. He'd be either busy and Nils Holm was out there with him some. He'd be busy with, what was it called then? No, it wasn't called Shambhala. It was called, before Vajradhatu, a business for them. And I went and saw Alan, and Alan goes, "Oh, you're in town. Let's have a party." And he just gets on the phone, and like there's a party, and there's like 20 people from Zen Center. There's all these people I know.
Well, Loring went out there, didn't he?
Oh, I'd see Loring. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember, different people. But, it was a trip in Boulder. Trungpa wanted me to come to a seminary, and I've always sort of regretted I didn't, because it would have been an experience. But it just, it wasn't my trip. I'm already indulgent enough. I didn't need to be encouraged. I like, when I was living with a woman, in, Bolinas, and, I had a son there, and so I didn't go. But the whole scene in Boulder, it was just it was better for me to visit. I don't think it would have worked for me to be there longer.
Well, anyways, we can continue next week.
Yeah. All right.
And before we sign off, I want to thank you for writing Crooked Cucumber and continuing with the website, because it's really a way of keeping Suzuki Roshi's spirit and teachings alive in this world where everything gets, changed so fast.
Yeah, lack of continuity.
Yeah, I'm really. It's really great that you're doing that, and.
Well, thank you. It's just doing my bit, but you're doing yours, and we're going to hear more about it next week.
Okay.
Good. All right. Well, it's funny. Great talking with you. You said you didn't see how you could go longer than an hour. I went, we'll see. Yeah.
Well, you got me going, I guess.
Yeah, I have done podcasts with people in their 80s. You are 80. When's your birthday?
My birthday's in May. I'm still 79.
Well, very good.
But coming up toward it.
So I have done a few with people that say, well, they're getting tired now. They need to go to bed or whatever.
Yeah, well, sometimes I feel that way, but then,
Yeah.
Other times it turns out I have more energy than I realized.
Yeah, I force myself to walk and do things sometimes when I feel sort of tired and I don't really want to do it. But overall, I feel so much better if I'm active, and my brain works better too.
Sure, I'm now taking. We have a dog, and I'm taking the dog for a walk every morning for
that's good.
half an hour. So that's good.
That's good, yeah.
So I get some exercise, too.
Yeah. All right. Well, a pleasure speaking with you, and take care.
Okay. Did you get the other picture I sent today?
Oh, I haven't even looked at email. I got up at 4:15 this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Just I did send. I found a picture from me at Tassajara.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. I look kind of serious, but that's the only one I could find.
Yeah. I got up at 4:15, and it takes me an hour and a half, 2 hours before I get to my computer because I meditate and walk and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'm trying to work on a book called Tassajara Stories. And
you mentioned that before. Yeah.
So I decided to work on it first because a lot of days, if I don't start with it, I don't get to it all. It was just one thing after another happens.
Right.
You know. So that's all I've done, and I haven't looked at email. All right. I will. Thanks.
Okay.
You sent one of them. Good. Well, listen, this podcast won't go up for over 2-3 months. I'm way ahead in talking to people.
No problem.
With the exception of if somebody has a book that's out they want to talk about, I'll put them ahead,
Yeah.
or something like that. Okay. Well, very good, Chris. Take care.
Okay, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right.
7 p.m. on my Wednesday and your Thursday morning.
Yeah, Thursday 10 a.m. here. Yeah.
10 a.m. Yeah,
which is nice time. All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thanks a lot, Chris. Really enjoyed talking with you. Now, as it says, next week we will have you reading that part of your book, Searching for the Path Within, From Poetry to Zen in the 60s. Oh, one thing I should say is it's not that he doesn't use himself as, he has a pen name. It's Christopher Lennox, Lennox. So next week he'll be reading a modified version of what's from that book in about his experience in the world of Zen. I'm probably more in the world of Zen Center, because the world of Zen, I'd hate to define what that is. Okay. So this has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, guest Doggett Boom Boo. The dog you hear barking is neither of them. It's the neighbor's dog, and it never barks very long. And dear lovely Katrinka, we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.